So I am back working on the Naturalist Flora journal, and I have gone ahead and created the cover, and I have used some canvas on the front side, and then in the inside is some cardstock. And so I've just left the edges pretty raw, ragged, and I've really did that on purpose around the edges for the cover. And then I've gone ahead and done a zigzag stitch around the entire cover, and that will keep the canvas from fraying anymore, but also adds just a little bit more decoration to the cover. And I've gone ahead and started decorating the cover, but I'll come back and add some more to it later. And so for the inside here, I've added a cardstock pocket, and then I've added some lace to the top of the pocket. And so I'm coming back now with some flower ribbon or lace. I'm not really sure what you call it. It feels like a little crocheted flower. And so I'm going to add that onto my lace as well. And I'm just using some Fabri-Tac to add this to the top of my pocket. And you can see here at the bottom of my pocket, there's a little gap. I do realize that I either forgot to glue the bottom of the pocket or it has come loose. So I'm just going to add a little glue to that as well once I get the flowers added on. And then I'm going to just use my stamping block to hold it down while we create a pocket for the journal. So while that is drying, I'm going to work on another pocket for the journal. So I have pulled out my Tim Holtz 3D embossing folder, and so I'm just going to create a pocket using this embossing folder. So what I want to do is just cut my cardstock down to the right size that will fit inside of the embossing folder. So just measure the folder and then I will trim it down. And once I have it trimmed down to the size that will fit inside the folder, then I'm just going to spray a little bit of water onto my cardstock. This is fairly thick cardstock, so I'm going to spray the front and the back. If it's a thinner cardstock, typically I'll just spray one side, but the thicker cardstock, I spray both sides. You don't want to get it really, really wet, but you do want to dampen it a little bit. With these 3D embossing folders, it does help keep the cardstock from cracking, especially your thicker cardstock will crack when you run it through the machine. So I am just adding a little bit of moisture to it so that it doesn't crack. And it embossed beautifully. So now what I want to do is I want the embossing to stand out. So I'm going to come in with some white ink, and I'm just going to start out first with my sponge here, my inking sponge, and I'm just going to rub it across the embossed area, and I'm just trying to highlight the embossing and not get it down in the grooves. So the more I do this, I do realize that it would probably be easier to just take the ink pad and run it across the edge, because I think that it catches the top of the embossing better and doesn't get down in the grooves by just using your ink pad. And so I really like how that's looking now, and it really helps the embossed area to stand out. And this was just the colors I wanted to use in my journal. You could do different color cardstock and different color inks this way. And so once I have it the way I like it, I'm just going to come back and trim it down to fit my little page that I'm putting it on. So I'm putting it on a little smaller page that's in my journal. So I'm just going to cut it down to fit that page, and then I can use the leftover scraps for something else. Now, this is probably the only pocket that I added to the journal before sewing it together. And the only reason I did was I was making the pocket, and while I was waiting for my cover to dry, and just forgot and added it. I prefer to add my pockets and things once I sew it together. I have in the past put a whole journal together, all the pages together, and then sew them in. But sometimes it gets a little bulky and it's a little harder to sew in. So most of the time I save my pockets to glue in after the sewing. But I think you can do it either way, just as long as you just understand that you're going to have a little bit bulkier journal when you do the sewing. So I'm just using Fabri-Tac to glue it in. You could use your art glitter glue or any glue. Sometimes you'll see that I just kind of swap these in and out. I'll use my art glitter glue and then I'll use my Fabri-Tac. I really love Fabri-Tac. I think it's perfect to add fabric to paper, but it's also great just for paper to paper. I find that it holds really well. My cover seems dry enough now to sew in the signature. So what I want to do is I just want to go through my pages first, and I want to make sure that all the pages are lined up like I want them. So I have different size pages. Now that page did already have the pockets. That was a pre-made page I made a little while back, and so I wanted to add it to this journal. So when I have pages like that, I do just go ahead and add them, and it's not too bulky that I can't sew it together. So what I was saying was I do have different size pages, so I'm going through and making sure that the pages are where I want them in the book. I don't want them, you know, all of them down to the bottom or all of them to the top. I want them kind of centered up in different places on the journal. So I'm just going through and adjusting all my pages, make sure nothing's upside down, make sure everything is in the way I want it and in the book where I want it to be, because I kind of like my pages to, certain pages I want them to be together. So I think we all have that, where we have different ones that match and look good together. So I'm also going to add this doily, but it doesn't, it's so small it's not going to fit into the paper clips, so I'm not worrying about it yet. So what I like to do is sometimes I use binder clips, but I also love using larger paper clips like this to hold my pages together, especially when it's a thinner journal like this. Then I can go ahead and use my paper clips to hold all my pages in place, and that way when I'm sewing it in, everything kind of stays together. So I'm just going to now bring my doily in and wrap it around, and then I'm going to start adding the holes. So for this one, I'm just going to be adding 3 holes. So what I first want to do is make sure that I line my pages up and down in the journal so that there's an even amount of space from the top and the bottom. And then I'll come in with a few more paper clips, as well as just taking some of the paper clips that I was using to attach the pages to the cover. And then once I have everything lined up like I like it, then I'm just going to start adding the holes to my pages and my cover. Now, I don't really measure when I'm creating journals like this. I'll just eyeball the center of my pages and the center of my journal, and I'll add a hole in the center. And then I'm just going to come in, and this page here in the center of the book is going to hide the string. So I'm making sure that I am coming in for my top hole and bottom hole so that it's inside of this little page that you see in the center of my book. And I'm going in probably about 1/4 to 1/2 inch from the edge of that piece of paper. And so for this one, I really wanted to use this twine, because of the pink. I thought it went really well with the cover, with the image on the front of the cover, and it really matched those flowers. So I've decided to use it. Now it's a little thicker than what I typically use to sew my journals together. So I am looking for a needle with a large enough eye for this twine. And then I'm just going to sew my journal together. Now for this one, I will say that this twine is quite thicker, so I probably should have made the holes a little thicker for the journal, because it is a little difficult to get it to pull through. So I'll start stitching from the center of my journal. So I start with the center hole, and I pull my thread through there. But you can see that this twine is quite thick, and especially since I doubled it up to come through. So I'm just going to come in with some pliers to pull the needle. This isn't the correct pair of pliers that I needed, but it was the only ones I could find at the moment, so they're the ones I'm going to use to pull the needle through. And so I'm not sure, I really love how the twine looks, but next time I'm not sure that I would use it again. If I did, I really think that I should have pushed my awl through more and made the hole larger. Now here you can see I'm going back and taking my needle and pressing it through, because with canvas, it kind of heals, is what I want to kind of say. Certain fabrics, the hole doesn't stay, and so you have to do this in order to find the hole when you come back up to the top. I've had several fabrics do this, but especially the canvas, it's really hard to find it. But as you can see, I'm struggling sewing this one together, and I've sewn together several journals, but it's the thickness of the twine. So, you know, you live and learn, but I really love how it looks in the end. So I still would say that it was perfect for this journal, but I think that I should have made my holes quite a bit bigger. So it does take me a little bit more work to sew this one together. But you know, I'm showing you this process because I want you to see that sometimes we struggle as well. Even if I've made a bunch of journals, I still struggle when I try something new. But I think I learned with this one that I'm going to have to do some hole a little bit different. Now, here's where it gets a little harder. So the twine is already too thick to go through the holes, and then to come right back through that hole again, because normally you know when you come back to the center hole, you come back through the same hole with your thread. I realized that this is really going to destroy my book if I try to do that. So instead, what I decided to do was to come back with my awl and just make another hole right next to the hole in the center. And so by doing that, it's going to make it a lot easier. So as you can see here, I'm just taking it and I'm just making the hole probably about 1/8 of an inch or so, maybe even 1/4 of an inch below the previous hole, probably about 1/4 of an inch, because you don't want it close enough that your holes become one hole, one huge hole. So that's what I did, and then I'm just going to pull it through and bring it through on the other side of my thread, just like you do a normal 3-hole stitch for your journal. And so what I'm going to do here is just, I've got that little extra hole, but it works perfect to tie this together, and the journal comes together just fine. So I do take all my paper clips off, and I am going to make sure I tighten this up so that the pages are in tight, because you can see right now they're kind of loose in the journal. So I just pull on each one of the threads like you do for all of your other journals. And so what I do is I just check my threads on the outside to make sure they're tight. And so those were fairly loose, so I'm just going to keep tightening until I get them exactly like I like them. Once I have them like I like them, then I'm just going to tie a knot in the center. Now this one I wasn't thinking. I went ahead and I tied several knots to hold it together, but then I went ahead and tied a bow, which for this one I'm going to hide this, so I really didn't need to tie a bow. I tied the bow out of habit, because typically I tie a bow in the center of my journal since you can see the bow since I don't cover it up. But for this one I'm going to cover it up, so then I just come back in with my art glitter glue, and I am just going to glue this little pocket together. So I just glue down 2 sides so that it is a pocket. And if you want to know how I created this one, you can see it in the previous video. And so in the previous video, I show you how I created that, as well as a lot of this ephemera. Now, some of the ephemera is from ephemera that I had in a box that I keep, that I make up ahead of time. And then some of this ephemera we made in the last video. So if you missed the last video, be sure to look in my description and check that one out to see how I made all the different pockets and parts for this journal. Now, I will say, after I put all these pockets in, I flip through it and see what all it needs, you know, things for the pockets. And I did not film the whole process because I thought that I was just going to add a little bit of things to the journal, but I got carried away. When I turned the camera off, I really got carried away, and I kept adding and adding to the journal. So if you really want to see how this journal turned out, you really need to check the flip through, because it's going to be totally different from what you see in this video, because in this one I'm just adding the pockets and things, and so you don't see all the journaling cards and the added decorations that I do in the end. Most of the time, that's how I work on my journals. I'll start adding the pockets and different things like that, and then I'll take a little break from it. I'll come back and I'll do a flip through of it, and then that's when I'll start adding a lot of different details to my journal. And so this time when I did that, I really thought I wasn't going to be adding that much, so I didn't turn the camera on. So be sure to check out the flip through to see all of the things that I added to this journal. And hopefully it will inspire you and give you some ideas of things to add to your journal. I love watching flip throughs, and I love watching others create journals because it gives me ideas of things to add to my journal as well. Now what I'm doing right now is just flipping through my journal, checking out all the different pockets and things that I have created, flip outs, and the different little things that I've created to add to my journal, and I'm just flipping through my journal, figuring out what pages I'm going to put those on. And so what I like to do is I like to lay everything out like this and then come back and glue all of the things in. That way I can, I want to make sure that I keep it pretty even, that I have an even amount of stuff in the front of the journal as well as in the back of the journal. So I will swap some things around a few times until I get it exactly like I like it, and then I'll just start gluing everything in. And you'll recognize some of these things. Some of these items I've made in Roxy's Weekly Challenges years ago, and then some things I've made recently in a Roxy's Weekly Challenge, and so I'm just adding those to my journal. So this was a really fun journal to create, and I'm just really behind schedule showing you. I created this one for a swap back in the end of, I do believe it was the end of April. So it has taken me a while to get these videos out. So I will have a flip through video coming out in the next few days, and then I want to do a flip through of the journal I received from the swap. And I did ask the lady that I swapped with if I could show it to you, and she said I could. So I want to show it to you because it's a really gorgeous journal. She is very talented, and she created a gorgeous journal. So I can't wait to show you that as well. So I hope that you have enjoyed seeing some of my process. I do apologize that I didn't get the whole process recorded. I did want this to be a start to finish kind of videos, but like I said, I was creating this as a swap, and when I turned the camera off, I didn't realize how much more I was going to add, so I didn't get everything on camera, and so sometimes that just happens. But I do like to share with you what I have done, just hopefully to inspire you. That's what these videos are for, is to inspire you to craft and just to keep you company. I know that sometimes I like to watch videos just to keep me company on days that I don't feel like crafting and I'm just kind of laying around and just watching YouTube. So hopefully you have enjoyed seeing me put this one together, and I will be back creating more journals. It's been a while since I've been creating journals. I have been creating cards for a while. That's what was inspiring me at the time, but now I'm really wanting to create some journals. So I have 3 different journals that I have printed out the digitals and have started making some things for. So I'm going to, and you've seen me make bits and pieces in other videos, and may not even realize it was for those journals, but I will be putting all that together. And so I'm going to do some journal videos coming up. So hopefully you will come back and check those out. And also, if you do enjoy watching my videos, I would really appreciate if you would hit the like button and subscribe. By subscribing, you can hit the notification bell and you will be notified each time I upload a new video. Also, for me, I enjoy subscribing to people because I want to know when they do come out with a new video. But also, I will think of, if I don't subscribe, I watch a video and then I forget to subscribe, and then I can't remember who created what, and so it's hard to figure out. You lose channels. So it's really nice to subscribe because you can have all of your subscriptions all on one page, and you can see different videos that you enjoy watching. So if you've enjoyed my videos, be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope that you will come back and watch my flip through video. And thank you so much for watching.